Good evening. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first item on the agenda is visitors' comments for items that are not on the agenda. Would anyone like to speak? Okay, come forward, sir. And if you could, yeah, no, it's okay. If you could just identify your name and address, thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name's Ken Dolan Del Vecchio. I live at 99 State Street with my husband in Palmer, and this is my friend Jenica Huff.
I live at 102 State Street.
And we're here because about 4 weeks ago, we began organizing a group that's called Citizens for Fair Energy Pricing. And it's in reaction to the extraordinary bills that many of us are getting from National Grid. So our bill was $903.79 for 1 month. My neighbor's bill was $989. We had people in our group whose bills were $1,500 for 1 month. And so we have been putting our heads together, and we came up with an approach where we're going to ask the governor for some things. We started a petition. We have about 170 people who have signed paper. We have about 25 or so who have signed online. And what we're going to ask her for are the following. We're going to ask for a new DPU commissioner, because the DPU, one of their core responsibilities is to ensure affordability. And Mr. Nostrand and the other two are not doing that. There were massive hikes this year. And we're also going to ask for a cap on kilowatt hour rates, and we're going to ask for an end to delivery charges, because the company should be able to deal with and keep up the various assets that are necessary to deliver services. What other service do you have where you go and you pay for the infrastructure? And we know that they must be getting other sources of revenue too, from the phone companies, from the internet companies,
the government,
from depreciation, from the government. And so it's time for a reset. So we put together a letter, and I'm going to ask the people who support our efforts. Some of you are in the room today. If you could just stand up. And actually, thank you.
Thank you.
And actually, we have our paper here as well. If you'd like to sign, we'll hang out for a while and you can add your names to it. But what we came here to do today is to ask for your support, because you represent us. And thank you so much for the work that you do. We know that you give a lot of hours to working on our behalf. And so Jenica's going to talk with you a little bit about what we're asking you for.
Thank you in advance for your consideration and for taking the time to listen to us this evening. The way that you could support this effort is by providing a letter of support on the town's behalf to the governor for this initiative. We have drafted that letter of support, so you can put it on your letterhead if you like it as is, and sign it and return it to us to forward to the governor. You're welcome to make changes to it too, but this is that letter that we've drafted. Dear Governor Healy, we fully support the Citizens for Fair Energy Pricing petition. As you are aware, Massachusetts has become increasingly unaffordable for residents over the past several years, as is evidenced in the Low-Income Housing Coalition's 2022 study of housing prices nationwide. In this study, Massachusetts ranked second only to California in housing costs. The recent extraordinary increase in electricity bills has substantially worsened the situation for Massachusetts residents. Some Palmer area residents, even those with homes measuring less than 1,200 square feet, have received electric bills of $900 to $1,500. Many people simply cannot afford to pay bills of this size. These high electric bills put a strain not only on Palmer residents, but also on the town's operations. Regarding the latter, even with a municipal rate, the Palmer Public Library is experiencing the highest electric charges in modern era. Such high expenses limit the town's ability to provide amenities and services. We strongly support Citizens for Fair Energy Pricing's request for a meeting with you to discuss their interest in the following: replacing the Department of Public Utilities Commissioner with someone committed to ensuring affordability, ending delivery charges, a cap on kilowatt-hour charges, the process that the DPU followed that resulted in these electricity rates, clarity on solar credits for those who own versus lease solar panels, establishing charges specific to each region in the state, similar to what the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities is doing in order to incentivize rental and ownership of housing. Respectfully, the Town Council of Palmer. And I have a copy of this for you to review, as well as a copy of the letter we intend to send to the governor. Again, thank you for your consideration.
Oh, can we also add the price of eggs and bacon in there? She's killing everyone on that.
That's beyond our scope.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Before they leave, quickly, what is the status of the aggregate that you're working on for the town?
Yeah, so the DPU has changed the process on it, so it went from originally about 12 to 18 months down to 6 to 12. But I'm still working, it's still a process working through with the process on that. I think we voted on that to move forward with the process probably in like July or August at some point. So we're approaching a benchmark, but I'm still working with a couple consultants to move forward on the spec.
Awesome.
And it'll keep you guys updated, just as it's at a standstill right now.
Thanks.
Steve Cosmeter, Thorndike.
1 second, Steve. So, I think, oh, but you're here. So I will review everything, and then your contact for us will be the town manager, okay? So, but we're not gonna take any action on this tonight, and we'd have to have it as an agenda item. I just want you to understand the process. So nothing's gonna happen tonight, okay? But, like I said, we'll review everything, and if we are gonna move forward with it, we would do that at our next month's agenda.
Okay,
Okay.
next month, okay.
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
okay? Okay, now you can go.
Okay.
Yep.
Thorndike Grammar School was sold with the town with $400,000. And that school was vacant there for 30 years. And Thorndike had to sort of put up with that. I feel that Thorndike should get some of that $400,000 for projects in town that have been neglected. I submitted a wish list back in September, stamped, received, and none of the items have been addressed, you know. I think we should get a share of that, rather than before it goes somewhere else.
Talking about the money from the sale of the building?
Yeah,
That's a quick explanation, because I think the money has to stay in an account for
Future purchases.
future town purchases of land.
When it goes through,
Land?
yeah, when it goes through, when any property goes through tax title process, which we acquired that one through tax title, when you resell it, that money stays in a specific pot that's only for future purchases. So if
of land.
Of-
Can't
of-
be used for infrastructure.
it's specific to land, to my knowledge, yeah. Yep. And Barbara, you probably are the expert on that. You may know.
Okay, so that
Yeah.
kills
It
that.
can't be specific improvements for one specific village, I guess I should say.
Oh, 'cause before I went somewhere else, you know, for whatever else, I would think Thorndike should have got a cut on that, you know. But, okay, next question. I had gone over the budget for this year, and I had noticed $130,000 of stabilization for the track. What was, I thought stabilization is for emergencies, and
No, stabilization fund is to set money aside for future capital needs. But, so we, as the council, we are just getting the budget. So Brad's gonna make a presentation to us tonight, and then the budget subcommittee will be meeting. But when we when we fixed the track, which we put millions of dollars into that track,
Yeah,
we had at that point committed that we were gonna set money aside every year, so when that track needs to be resurfaced, we would have the money set aside to do that. So that's why we're setting the money
this
aside.
would accumulate every year?
It will keep accumulating every single year, so then when it's time to be resurfaced, we will have the money. Yep. Because as you know, so I don't know what your list is, but I would love to see it. I don't know who stamped it receipted, but it wasn't, I don't think it was anyone on the council, so we have not seen it. But as you know, we do a terrible job keeping up with infrastructure. And so that was, like I said, that was the commitment that we made
Be proactive.
towards the track, and so we are gonna continue to do that. But as far as other items in the budget, we haven't started reviewing yet. There's a council subcommittee made up of myself, Jessica, and Mark, and we will start meeting, actually, we have a meeting tomorrow,
Wednesday.
or Wednesday, sorry, I don't know what day it is, yes, Wednesday. Go ahead.
Okay, my next question is my favorite, and that's Converse Middle School. It's been vacant for 10 years. Seems that people are dragging their feet here. We wasted probably hundreds of thousands of dollars heating it. And now I'm told the boiler has self-destructed. So it needs a new boiler. The water's been shut off. And it seems like there's nothing been happening. Everything's been going to executive sessions.
So no, that's not true. I think Brad has given some updates in public session, but if you want to just
Yeah,
touch
no,
on
I
that.
actually have one for my town manager's report tonight, but I'll jump to it now. So the surveying, if you guys remember, the council approved surveying to be done through ARPA funds. They finally came maybe about a month and a half ago. And unfortunately, what they ran into, and again, the goal of the surveying was to redeed the parcel, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to give away the parking that goes along with the field. So what they needed to do is they need to review all the deeds to see how we acquired it. And we've hit nothing but roadblocks. The deeds date back to like the early 1800s. There was nothing in our assessor's office. So therefore now we have to hire a land attorney to really review this and deep dive into how the town acquired it and where it's recorded. So I'm with you. I think the whole council, I think all the community is saying, hey, it looks like we're not doing anything, but in order for us to do it right, in my opinion, and to sell it as is and redeed it, we need that titles research to be done and everything finalized. I get it. We're sitting on a nice sum of money coming into us. We're sitting on the community redeveloping and reusing that building. But again, we got to do it right. And that's where we're at a standstill right now. But the legal land council is reviewing that. Again, it just may take some time because they may have to actually go into the registry of deeds and actually like go through the actual books from the 1800s to find the articles and the transfers.
It seems strange. 'Cause
The deeds.
Mr. Converse owned that field for years, and then Palmer Savings Bank was involved there too.
I hope it's easy research. I can just tell you, none of the records we have in our files here at Town Hall give us the official transfers.
Then the Works Progress Administration built that field, so they were involved there too. It seems it shouldn't be that deep into the 1800s. I'm no lawyer, but
I'm with you. I wish, I mean, again, I'll state for the council, when I first started, this was high on my priority list. We got Thorndike off our books, or back on our books, I should say, and we wanted to move on Converse, but it just has been roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. But again, everyone knows the value of keeping the parking. We need to have that cleared up before we sell it, because I don't want to advertise the property as to be determined, or this is kind of what it may be. I want to give them what the final product is, so we get a fair market price for it.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
How you doing? I'm Steve Henn, 106 State Street here in town. I'm part of the Palmer Youth Basketball Association, and just kind of spinning off of Converse. And as you know, we didn't have that gym for the last year, which caused our basketball program from first grade through eighth to kind of, we got one practice if we were lucky every week, where all the other towns had two or more. We spoke with our town manager here probably in the fall. You know, so I was just wondering if we had an update on, you know, trying to get a gym to kind of replace that so we can get these, you know, kids the gym time.
We did. We paid money to redo the gym at Pathfinder.
Yep.
And and I was in that meeting with the parents, and my understanding, and I think Brad's understanding, is that once that gym became available from Pathfinder, that was going to solve the issues that you guys were having. So if that did not happen, that was never relayed back to me. You know, we, because of the issue at Converse Middle School, voted as a council to just, even though the Pathfinder is you know, as you know, made up of many different towns in the district, we put all the money in to be able to fix that gym. So that's very upsetting, I think, if that didn't work out to the fact where you guys were able to use it.
Yeah, we were able to use it, but it was only like 3-hour blocks here and there. Sometimes it would be more, but they redid the floor right at the end of the basketball season, so we were shut down for a couple of weeks, which made it even harder. We had to hire custodians, and we had to do their 3 or 4 hour minimum that they had, so there was an expense. Then, you know, it was a nightmare. So yeah, I know probably from your standpoint, you're thinking, hey, we're getting the floor done, we're part of that. I think it was $50,000 our town put towards that, and other towns did as well, but it did not solve our problem. We had one practice, and I'm friends with all the rec directors around, and they all had 2. And you could tell the difference between our program and everybody else's. And, you know, obviously lack of practice shows in performance. So we're down a gym, because Converse we had 24/7. We could go in there ourselves, clean it ourselves. At Pathfinder, we don't have a key. We have to go by the, you know, custodian unions and all that stuff. So there is a restriction there, and we're trying to work with, you know, the superintendent of schools to try to get some more time at Palmer High School, try to work this out, but we need another gym, because Converse was, you know, the save all, now it's gone. So just wondering, you know, because there was talks about getting something at Burleigh Park or trying to do something. So yeah, unfortunately, Pathfinder didn't solve
Okay.
anything. We still had half the practices that we did when we had Converse.
Yeah, some of the feedback I got from talking with Joe and a couple other basketball parents was Pathfinder definitely helped, but it didn't solve all of the issues. A large portion of, I think, some of the problems we're running into is, like everything else, custodial coverage, right? Like, if we don't have someone available to cover, therefore they weren't able to allow someone in during the weekends. Now, that's not to say that, again, we're not the school department, but the school possibly could work with the youth groups to allow them to utilize the gym, or have someone set up that can let them into the gym. They understand how to turn the lights on, just basic things like that. But that's not under our jurisdiction. That'd be up to the school to allow that. In a former district I worked in, we worked with the youth groups to make that happen, because it gave you guys longer coverage on the weekends, because you may not always have a custodian that's able to work 12-hour days, 8-hour days, whatever it may be. So there hopefully is a middle ground to find in that. But to answer your long-term question about possibly another building, a request will be made to the council for a 50, it may be a little bit more, but right now the original request would be for 50,000 to master plan Burleigh Park. Again, it feeds into the long-term practice here, right? We put Band-Aids on things. We need to revamp and look at everything we have, what we're missing, and get a long-term plan on that. And if that is to really, my opinion is we focus on Burleigh Park and make that our hub of our sports. And there's area to develop in there, whether it's putting in a Butler building, but again, at the end of the day, the 50 grand is nice because hopefully it gives us a game plan, but where's the long-term money going to come to really fund all the renovations that come with that plan? So that the original request is in the works at the council, but again, that's only going to solve one piece of the larger problem, which is getting you guys an actual building.
Right. So next season is going to be the same as
There's
this.
no way, even
Yeah,
if
we broke ground, right?
if you're out 2 years at a minimum.
Well, at least we
yeah.
can you know, give an update to the rest of the PYBA and know that, okay, we're in the same boat we were last year, other than trying to get creative with Pathfinder and get more time. And
Yep. The only thing that could happen is that, and I will say, of everyone who is interested in Converse that has expressed interest to me, they have all said that they are interested in maintaining that as a public use gymnasium. But until we go through the process, who knows? There may be an outside buyer that may change the whole their thinking. But that was one thing I actually was pretty impressed on. That there's 3 people that have been very interested in the building, and all 3 have maintained that they see that as a community use.
It's not just basketball either.
No, it's-
Youth-
it's wide-
youth
yeah,
baseball
yeah,
took a hit
yeah.
this spring too because they didn't have anywhere to practice indoor.
Just to be clear, though, you couldn't use the gym at Pathfinder at all on the weekends?
No, we did, but it was, very limited, 3-4 hours, here and there, but they were practicing on the weekends. The high school teams don't have games on the weekends, but they do practice.
Yep.
So we had to coordinate with them, they have, I don't know if they had JV too, I know they both had
And
boys,
that's-
girls,
and-
varsity, and
Yeah, and that's the struggle, and that's what I think, like, it's easy to just say, we can fit this in our actual buildings we have, but reality is, when you add in a girls and boys JV and varsity, that is an hour and a half each of practice. So and you don't start till after 2:00, because when school ends. So you're booked from 2 to 8 for practice, and you guys aren't gonna go in there with youth after 8:00. Maybe you get an hour in 8 to 9, but, it just is it's a numbers game, and, unfortunately, I think the weekends is the only area, I think, hopefully, that they can work with you guys on, again, to get you guys in there, but that's not really, that's up to the
Yeah.
schools to decide how they wanna.
And then just one last question on that. So were you able to use the high school at all?
So we just sat down with Mr. Francis a couple weeks ago, and it was we have a game plan going forward for next year. We're going to try to have set times for the high school teams to right after school, because if they utilize that, they're already there. I guess 2 of the coaches, I think for the boys, are in the building already, where there's no reason they don't have to worry about traveling from work. They're in the building. So we're going to try to make it where they get their practices done right after school, and then we can try to utilize that with set days and times, because we have 20-something teams that we're trying to schedule, and trying to go from 1 practice a week to 2.
Yep.
And then we have 1 game a week as well, and half of them are at home. So we're trying. The reason why I saw the opportunity to try to get an update and see what, if we had something in the works as far as a building, maybe 2-5 years down the road, but some kind of update. But
Is Camp Vermont an option? I don't know if you guys have ever reached out to them. I just learned the other day they have a full gymnasium.
yeah, we tried that. I guess there's asbestos tiles that need to be. That's something we're going to try to, because as long as it's not, we can put something over it, a floor over it. So that's one of the avenues that we've discussed trying to use. I think it's a great option. It's just getting them on board, and I think we're trying to partner with them and help them with their bingo nights and stuff like that, where they don't have the, manpower to set up and break down, so we might try to barter with them. for some
That's
things.
St. Thomas.
St. Thomas, yes. Oh yeah, the other one, they had an issue. They denied us for some reason. I forgot what it was. It might have been, they had some programs in there, and then they said something about, in the wintertime, I think it was custodial stuff or access again, liability insurance and all that, so.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we're trying everything. St. Thomas is the one I was
Yeah.
thinking. Yeah, but the other camp one, that didn't work out. They flat out said no. So that wasn't an option for us.
Right. Okay, well.
Well, I appreciate your
We'll see
time.
what we can do.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, seeing no one.
Real quick question, Pat. So the money from selling of the school, you couldn't utilize that to purchasing and building a court or nothing?
There's changes in the law now when it comes to selling property, and I think if you want an answer, I personally, the law just changed in November, and so I'm not totally up on all the sections of the law yet, but it is more
Yeah.
complicated.
I do think, though, that if it's new construction, I think that could offset it. Prime example is if we built a new DPW building, I do think the sale of prior real estate could be used to offset that. It would limit what we need to go to the tax base for. Just using an example, not saying we're gonna take that
Right.
approach, but, yeah.
No, I'm just saying, utilizing Burley Park, obviously, is,
It's developing a asset that I think you probably could do that, but I'll get the definitive answers for you.
Okay, we have no old business, new business. First is Master Plan Implementation Committee Annual Report. Amber?
On the computer.
Okay.
It's all set up for you.
Okay.
You can hit the arrow, just all the buttons. Come on. Get the TV to work.
If not, I'll just narrate the whole thing for you guys. It'll be wonderful.
Oh, they have handouts too.
Oh, good. Okay.
Break out the teacher voice.
I will. If I have to, I'll use it. I don't like to, but if I need to, I will. Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Amber Compolanian Hastings. I am the chair on the Master Plan Implementation Committee, and I'm here today to give you guys an annual report. So I'm going to go over our goals, our process, our findings, and then lastly, our recommendations to the town council. If you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt me as I'm going along, or if you'd like to wait to the end, that's fine too. Okay? Actually, let me go back. Before I go, let me introduce my fellow members. So you guys all know Jessica. I have her on here as Sizer, but it's Ferry now. Nicholas Zio, also a member of the Master Plan Implementation Committee. Dave Golden, and Patience Hartley. So our goal, for those of you who don't know kind of who we are or what we do, is we are here to make sure that the high priority action items that were outlined in the master plan are achieved. Obviously, the town took a lot of time during the pandemic to create this document. It was created by the residents and stakeholders in conjunction with help from VHB and PVPC. And then the committee began meeting in October of 2022. So we wanted to make sure that that master plan did not just get shoved on a shelf somewhere and collect dust for the next 50 years, right? So that's our job, is just to make sure that those things that the residents and the town has said are important to them are continuing to kind of move forward. So how we do our process is pretty simple. The committee identifies the stakeholders attached to a high priority action item. So we use the master plan to do this. And then we invite those stakeholders in for a discussion. So we ask them a couple questions. First, we look at the current situation that's surrounding the item. So where are we in terms of that goal? What barriers might be slowing or preventing movement towards achievement of that item? And then any recommendations that the stakeholders themselves might have about how to remove those barriers, right? So as a committee, we can't do any of that great fun stuff, but we can certainly collect that data and then try to facilitate what might need to be done to remove those barriers and get them to achieve the goal. So our process is pretty simple. We've created a task matrix to track the progress. And we do this for not only each stakeholder meeting that we have, but we also have a larger overall task matrix that we enter data into. And we also follow up periodically for updates. So typically once a year we reach back out, ask them if they have anything to update or share, and then that gets added into our task matrix. I did not bring you all of it today, but if anyone is interested in seeing the actual task matrix, I'm happy to print them or send them via PDF on email. Okay. So some of the stakeholders that we have met with so far are the Historical Commission, the water districts. We did meet directly with Palmer and Three Rivers. We received a report from Bondsville, and we were not able to personally meet with Thorndike. We also had the Recreation Department when we had a director a few years ago, Conservation Commission, Citizens for Palmer Rail, both Pathfinder and Palmer Public Schools, Community Development, the Department of Public Works, and our town manager. So that's who we've gotten to so far. We do have more to get to, but it takes time. So these are the ones we've spoken to so far. So these are some of the progresses that we'd like to report on. One of the things that we found out by being a part of this committee is that there's a lot of really great things that go on in this town. And sometimes that gets overshadowed by some of the persistent negative ones. So we just like to highlight some of the successes and progress in town. So the first, as far as rail and community development, is that obviously West East Rail Committee was created and a site was selected for further development, and that the platform station is on schedule to open for service in 2029. So that was a big win for us. The sale of the Thorndike School, and obviously trying to move forward on Converse for development and sale. The mill reuse overlay district accomplished for Thorndike, that was sort of to support development as well. And also the commercial development and infrastructure improvement at the newly defined business district off of the Pike exit. So all things that are sort of moving our town along with what the master plan sees and along with what our residents see is what the town should become. So progress in that area. As far as historical and recreational, the Historical Commission has a housing survey that they are working on currently. They are starting with the Thorndike Mill houses. There has also been progress on monument and memorial preservation. The town manager and the town council allocated funds for this, and the DPW is assisting with this as well. As far as the Recreation Committee, this was formed after the Recreation Director parted ways, and the committee will explore the needs of the town and redefine the Recreation Director job description. So they are currently honing in and redefining that job so that we can get somebody in here that will do what we need them to do. Obviously, you know, Brad just spoke about this, the revitalization of Burley Park. So exploring those options as a recreational hub and using that to sort of highlight that it was once, you know, the center of Palmer and it could be the center again. All right. DPW and community development again. So possible movements of the DPW. I know that before our last DPW director left, they were looking at the lawn and leaf disposal in areas on Old Warren Road as a potential to move the DPW. And they were looking for a feasibility study to be conducted. Internships have been revived with Pathfinder for landscaping and other product projects. So that's a wonderful cohesion between schools and the town. And a complete streets grant was secured to improve streets for better sidewalks and lighting. And two such projects that have gone on have been Maple Street and Maple Street Terrace. As far as progress in conservation, Barker Street property has been acquired to help connect the river trail to Redbridge. A cleanup has been started, and I think you can see later on in your agendas, there's more coming with those cleanups. And a kiosk has been purchased, and Pathfinder is going to help with the installation of the kiosk. So again, kind of bringing different stakeholders together to support those high priority action items. There has been a revitalization of the rail trail connectivity through Palmer, people interested in getting that going. Also an expansion of the Blue Trail, including the proposed takeout or put-in for a non-motorized boat at Lavalette Field on the Quabog River. And improvement of water flow at Forest Lake by the creation of a swale to help with stormwater runoff. And this was done in conjunction with the Office of Fishing and Boating and Access helped. So they kind of collaborated to get that job done. Am I going too fast? There's a lot of progress, you know, so I want to highlight it. As far as Palmer Public Schools and Pathfinder, I'm sure you are all aware of the Why Palmer campaign, something that was started by Superintendent Francis to help rebrand the school systems. Also, full-time and free preschool has been added. There's also been a reevaluation of safe routes to and from school through an audit for our kids who walk or bike or want to use those kinds of access points to school. There is a shared use agreement between Pathfinder, Palmer Public, and the youth leagues. I know Steve Henn kind of, you know, talked about it tonight that they're still working things out, but there does seem to be an acknowledgement by the schools that they're in it to help, right? And as they're kind of going to work with us. The continuation of STEAM programs, including the very successful summer camps at Pathfinder, which really garner a lot of attention and get waiting lists. So they are continuing to push through that kind of learning for the kids of Palmer.
What is the STEAM program?
So STEAM is basically, it's science, technology, engineering, those kinds of programs. And in general, education likes to see those kinds of programs started early because those are the kinds of jobs that the market is requiring. Mm-hmm. So any kind of support of those kinds of training or involvement at a younger age is really great because then those kids kind of follow that track that they might not even know is available to them. So Pathfinder does a really good job with that. Palmer also is incorporating more programs into it. I know my son is an 8-year-old at Old Mill Pond, and he does STEAM work. He does coding. He does all kinds of things that, you know, you and I probably were never exposed to in school. But it opens up the world for jobs for them in technology and engineering and math and science. There's also been progress in the connections between local businesses and Pathfinder students. We did talk about the fact that the landscaping program has kind of worked with the town on some projects and doing the kiosks and things like that. But also there's been a very successful TWIST program for several years with Sanderson McLeod. So students are able to go there, check things out, kind of intern stuff. It's been very successful for them. Okay. Water and fire. So there has been installation of a water main connecting Bondsville and Three Rivers. Inter-district collaboration is in the upgrade of the billing software and meter reading equipment at both Bondsville and Thorndike. And there was a collaborative model plan in 2014 that outlined the steps that would need to be taken to consolidate the water and fire districts.
You found that thing?
Huh?
You actually found that from taking
That was a while ago.
Bondsville. This out. They had, yeah.
The whole town.
Yes. However, obviously, this is 2014 and now it's 2025. So obviously, the pricing and steps that might need to take to do that might need to be updated, but that was created. And there has been collaboration between some of the districts, but obviously not all of the districts together. So we do see that as progress in the right direction. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on progress before I...
Your plate is full. Awesome.
Thank you.
You're doing great.
We have a wonderful committee. They're awesome to work with. So some of our general recommendations from talking to so many stakeholders throughout this process is that one of the things that we know is that each town seems to have a lot less to do a lot with. And so one of the recommendations of us is to explore regionalization opportunities while also thoughtfully considering local autonomy and potential challenges. Towns need to probably work together on some things, right? But also making sure that the stakeholders of your town are represented in that regionalization. Also, prioritize long-term strategies when making decisions. I think Brad referenced that tonight. This will help the town avoid less effective and more costly temporary fixes. So kind of playing the long game instead of the short game. That's one of our general recommendations. Exploring new ideas and approaches that go beyond the traditional, the way things have always been done model. We need to have some new ideas and explore them fully before we just say, no, we can't do that because it's never been done that way. Sometimes creative solutions can fix a problem that's been stuck for a while, and we've seen that through our conversations with our stakeholders. Also, continue improving communications between departments. We've seen more progress in stakeholders leaning on each other and coming together to solve a problem versus just being like, well, that's conservation's problem. DPW has nothing to do with it, right? And more of that is definitely helpful for solving and getting the high priority action items completed. We do have some specific recommendations. What I did here is I sort of gave you the recommendation and then kind of listed the stakeholders that have mentioned that this would be incredibly helpful. So when we spoke to our stakeholders, several things sort of came across from different sources. We wanted to highlight that. So the first is social media and website management. The revamp of the website of the town to be user-friendly would be extremely important. We've seen, someone like Superintendent Francis rebrand sort of things. And, I would say that for those of us who have had to use the website, it's not user-friendly. Some of the things that we found while we were doing research, is that, every page is kind of different, right? So like, for instance, when we were looking at who do we contact for the water districts, some people had some listed information and then other people had different stuff and it was different places on the website. And that can be very confusing for consumers who are trying to find out who to contact or how to solve their problems. So having somebody to come in to revamp that would be really important. And also somebody who could coordinate the message and rebrand the town. We know that that's been largely successful for our school systems. Changing that narrative about what's being told about Palmer is huge. And if it could be a coordinated effort and not just one stakeholder trying to change the tide, it would be much more beneficial for the town. And that came up with our recreation, our Palmer Public Schools, and also our water districts. Talked about the social media and website management. Our next specific recommendation is obviously the consolidation of the water and the fire districts, right? I think it's important to know that you want to build on the progress made and try to bring all the water districts together. I know that sometimes can be difficult, but those conversations can be had, and we can kind of simplify and streamline is the idea. So the water districts themselves brought up this idea of consolidation and what they think might be beneficial for that. The DPW, community development, conservation, planning, and historical all weighed in with that this would be a positive move for the town to move in this direction.
I've advocated that for years, and I don't
Yes.
mean to fire anyone.
No.
Just when they retire, don't rehire. And slowly, within 10 years or 15, it could be one.
Yes.
I don't know if it's possible, but I
Well,
don't.
like she said, 2014.
Yeah.
There was a
I
there was a
on the
plan.
water
There was a
department.
model.
I
Yeah.
was on the water
Yeah.
department then. We sat with
Yeah.
Bondsville.
There's a whole
Three
thing done.
Rivers,
Yeah.
Palmer wanted nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
So good luck in that one. I mean, I do feel that you can get 3 out of the 4 together, and it does benefit them in ways that they also know. Being one, it's not owned by the town still. It's just, instead of 6 water commissioners, they'd have 3. And if you need the old school mentality, you can have 1 elected from each village. In their ability to get grants now doubles, triples, because they have more of a base of people versus just one of the villages trying to get a grant for, a new tank.
Absolutely.
Whatever, but.
I will say that we were very surprised when we began to have conversations, and we weren't able to bring all of the districts together to have a conversation. That was our first goal, but lofty goals, right, sometimes need steps. But when we did speak to most of the districts, we were very happy to see that even if there wasn't collaboration going on full, there is going on between certain districts, and that's a good place to sort of highlight that progress and move it forward. So
Is there any other town that has 3 or 4 water districts? And
I don't know off the top of my head. I know that we've talked about, I think, Auburn as one before, but I think there are others that exist. And we know that there is a complicated process to consolidate and that it's not an easy fix. But definitely, I think building on the let's work together as much as we can until we can move this to a place where there is a consolidation should be encouraged amongst the water and fire districts, right? Help each other.
Barnstable
Is one?
and
Okay.
they just regionalized fire. I don't know about water.
Okay.
Maybe 3 to 5 years ago.
So there is a way forward.
you know how they did it? Was it in the charter? or
Through a
whatever?
meeting of the minds of people who wanted to actually make change.
We're here.
That's where
Right.
I know it's hard when you're at that age, 20s, 30s, or whatever. You don't have the free time as you do like now. I'm 60-something. When I was at 30, I was more interested in riding the dirt bikes and stuff. But to get more younger people involved in saying, hey, look, yeah, I live in this town. I moved here. I plan on staying here. Sometimes it's only a couple hours a night or something to push it through and get it going.
Absolutely. And I think, too, the more that this is brought to their plate and the more that this is highlighted, like I know this committee will check back with them every year and say, what have you done? What is the progress? And I think knowing, too, that this is given out at a meeting in front of the public is very important, right? Not only to celebrate those collaborations that are going on, but also maybe to give a push towards that eventual goal in the master plan.
Save the public money,
Yep. So
tax paying.
yeah, just to finish my last recommendation slide, we also talked about an overall recommendation for coming up with an improvement plan to replace and upgrade infrastructure, and that this obviously needs to be done across departments and in conjunction with state and federal guidance as well. So this is something that came up in a lot of our stakeholder meetings that, again, that sort of like long-term future thing. We need to invest in, getting some key things replaced before they go. And then we're not scrambling to fix it at whatever cost it is at the moment. So that was also a recommendation. And then the stormwater coordinator, this is something that came up in quite a few stakeholder meetings as well. It has been a position that has sort of been bounced from place to place. I think it was in conservation for a little while. Then it was with DPW. Brad, do you know the status of where that position is? It's still in DPW? Okay.
The contract is.
The contract is, okay. So it currently resides with DPW, but one of the things that the master plan does call for is to look for some sort of a coordinated position where someone is not trying to balance this with their other duties. One of the recommendations we had is to look to a regional position. That's an option. Instead of having Palmer just have a stormwater coordinator, perhaps one for the districts around it as well. And there is a stormwater management program that could be sort of a way to solidify a direction on how to kind of take this off of someone else's plate and give it to a regional take. And the last thing we have for a recommendation is from our historical commission. And one of the things that they really need, and this was brought up, I think, more than a year ago when we did our first sort of informal meeting. I was not the chair at that time. But the historical commission needs a place to store some of the historical assets they have. Currently, those assets are scattered across personal and private property, as well as, a small space in the library and other things. We just talked about the significance of a deed from the 1800s, and that is something that our historical committee and commission can do for us. But if we don't have a place to store those documents, they're going to be gone. So they would be able to talk a little bit more about sort of what they need. But they were willing to kind of talk to council about any sort of safe space. Ideally, I think they would love one that could allow the public in to view some of their collections, which are endlessly fascinating. But at least a place that gets those items out of personal property and gives them a safe space that they can be accessed for research or community, access. So that is it.
Just out of curiosity, how much space are you guys looking for?
I'm going to refer to Patience Hartley, who is on the historical board, if you don't mind, Patience.
Well, as far as storage goes, if it was just to be stored, something the size of like this part of the room would help. I know it's a bit more unrealistic to have like a display area other than like the small but wonderful places in our town. But anything, we really just maxed out that wonderful space in the library, and to keep the artifacts safe is really the primary concern, because they belong to the town and the townspeople, and it's not safe to have them in private residences.
I was just curious if you were going to tell me there's like 10 vehicles or, you know what I mean? Like,
No,
like
I don't
do we
think
need
it's
like
that
a
big of a-
garage? You know what I
We're
mean?
frequently offered amazing, historically significant things to the town of Palmer that are like part of our culture and history, from founding families, different things like that, that we can't accept. And it's so sad, because we don't have a realistic place to put them where they may not get water damage or, some other type of damage, or be in a private residence. So.
Got it.
Just had an idea.
Third floor of the
Sit on
library.
it
What's
till,
the third floor of the
Sounds
library?
great.
There's all kinds of pictures there. and everything.
That's where they have their stuff now.
It's cool.
Yeah, what?
That's where they have their stuff now, on the third floor of the library.
You should go there. It's
That's great for paper documents and things like that, and we have wonderful files.
But for textiles and larger items,
Yeah, we
it would
have
be great to have a
textiles,
safer housing.
Pieces of woodworking, industrial, we have great industrial history here. There's so many different things that we've had to accept and then put somewhere not ideal or not be able to accept.
Well, I think definitely a conversation for another day, but,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think great presentation. I took lots of notes, and we'll see where we can go from here. But great job to the whole committee. Thank you. You can tell a lot of time and effort went into this, so really appreciate that.
And if anybody has an interest in seeing any of the tax matrix and where we collect our data and when we talk to people and how long and anything like that, I'm happy to produce those or send those to anybody who would be more interested in the data deep dive. But I tried to really streamline it for you here.
Well, great job.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Amber.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is a Community Development Departmental update from John Latour.
Good evening, my name is John Latour. I'm the Community Development Director for the town of Palmer, and I'm going to update on the recent progress that we've had. I'll start with the oldest grant that we have on file. It's the FY20 grant, and we did design for the playground and 17 units of housing rehab for low-income families. It's in closure right now. It should be another month or so before we get the letter of closure. And that total grant was $825,000. The FY21 grant, which is still ongoing, we're in the process of closing. It's the money that was used to redevelop Hernevitz Park. We also had money, the goal was 4 units of housing, and we were able to do 7. We revitalized a 6-family house in the on High Street in Three Rivers, and went from a non-producing property that was vacant to it's currently been filled, and it's at market rates. And the landlord, well, market rates, fair market rates, not fair market rates. The other part of it is that the owner leveraged his own money for a good deal of the project. And the town's share of that was about $115,000, and he spent well over $200,000. So the next grant is the FY22-23 grant, and that is more of an infrastructure grant. And it was intentional to try to focus on infrastructure for sewer, water, comprehensive approach for sidewalks, water lines, sewer lines, handicap access, paving. So that grant, we just closed on the competitive bidding. It came in at $1.423 million. It's due to start May 15th, and that's you'll be seeing some signs going up for the residents so that they know that there's going to be impact, and that should take about 10 months or so of work to complete.
That's Three Rivers, Maple, and Maple Terrace, right?
Maple and Maple Terrace.
Gotcha.
The current, and that's the FY22-23 grant, where the state combined the 2 grant years into one, and the FY24 is also, that's the Maple Terrace portion of that. Combined, it's $1.423 million. Last Thursday, we submitted the FY25 grant, and that's for $850,000. We're hoping that we'll hear back sometime in July of this year, and that will be for the Park Street, Three Rivers, Front Street, and design of Kelly Street for the next round, for the next comprehensive infrastructure work.
I did hear too that the water department, Three Rivers, is jumping on that project too to upgrade.
Yes.
Good.
While the street's open.
Right.
They're going to be very attentive in watching and seeing what's going in, also to do any kind of replacement that may occur while the street's open. Now for the other grants that we have, the Leo Walsh Foundation. They have generously donated money for the Hernevitz Park and for the flowers and the plantings, and also the revitalization of the gazebo. The other part of it is the foundation's willing to pay for 2 picnic tables with sun coverage in the park, so that people have a shady place to eat and relax. We also have, and Amber left, we also have the Palmer High School School to Career program. We have interns. Our current college intern started out as a Palmer School to Work program attendee. We also have an intern from the high school right now. And then the Fuel Assistance Program, which the council put forth. We are still taking applications. We have assisted 76 families with the last round of money, and currently we have 17 families, and it's still ongoing. And then that's another fuel assistance program from the Mullen family. And we've helped 12 families with with those funds currently. So I'm sorry I was so brief with all the descriptions, but if anybody has
That's
any
great.
questions.
Any questions for John?
I'll just reemphasize one thing on that, because that was part of my town manager's report, is there still is fuel assistance money available through ARPA that the council allocated, so I think it's under contract till June 30th?
June 1st.
June 1st, okay. So anyone who needs a fill-up that is eligible should reach out to Community Development ASAP, because we want that money gone.
But just to be clear, that's also for people that heat with electricity. So to the point of the first speaker this evening, if people were struggling to pay their heating, their heating bills that heated with electricity, they could also reach out to you.
They have.
Okay, perfect.
So we've,
All right, I just wanted to make sure
Two
people.
pots of money, yeah.
That it's not just oil, it's,
well, for that ARPA funds, because of the nature of bidding out for a comprehensive fuel assistance program, it's far more diverse and complicated. So the largest percentage of the population uses oil.
yeah.
So that's the ARPA money. The Mullen Foundation helps with all the other.
Okay.
Fills in the gaps.
heating, so-
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the only reason I mentioned is because sometimes a lot of people just think that we're talking oil.
Right.
And it doesn't, it's not. It's however you heat your home.
And I can confirm, I forget what his name was, but the gentleman that was here earlier, the people that have electric bills, I've never seen people so strapped
Right.
because of $1,000 electric bill.
Wow.
Ken?
That's a mortgage payment. That's a mortgage payment.
Some people, it's higher, it's $1,200-$1,500. And I can't, when they come in, I try to steer them to the energy conservation program, but that's not going to be impactful until a month, 2 months down the road, or the next heating season. We try to get them to go through an energy conservation program when they come in the door with us. It's you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them. But I try to emphasize that they could save 25%. Now it seems to be higher.
You're saying Mass Save, right? You're pointing people to
Mass
those
Save.
programs that they have? Right.
And
Valley Opportunity, the LIHEAP program, the low-income housing
Yeah.
heating assistance program.
Nice.
Try to do what we can, and that's why we've had the number of people that we've come in. The heating costs are still relatively high.
Wow.
All right, thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Two.
All right, next item on the agenda is Planning and Conservation Departments, our town planner and our conservation agent.
Thanks, John.
Hi.
Oh, nice. Smart saving it all. All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Heidi Manarino from the Planning Department. This is Jessica Layden from the Conservation Department. Oh, it's not presenting yet.
It's coming.
Okay. So we just have a quick update for you all on our departments. On this first slide, I just have a really quick overview of some of the permitting that the planning board has done this year. This is only the approvals listed here, so I'm not going to read out every number, but one thing that I wanted to briefly touch upon was the open space residential development, because that's what I've been getting the most inquiries on. So on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see an overview of this plan. So this was approved by the planning board back in February. However, it's still undergoing other approvals, such as in conservation. So this would be a 24-lot subdivision, and all that area in purple would be conserved as open space.
That's one of the two Bondsville developments, correct?
Of the two,
I think there's two proposed on State Street at the moment, aren't there?
Is that one off of Foster Street?
oh,
State Street?
nothing has come before the board as far as formal subdivision
Got it.
application. That's been the only one. This is just some grants that the department has been overseeing this past fiscal year. So the first one is the Green Communities Grant. So we were awarded $118,000 to replace the existing condensing unit with an air source heat pump. So this was a necessary improvement because it appears as though the existing condensing unit was original to the building, which was built back in 1978. So its lifespan is coming towards the end. Its efficiency is lessening. So we were able to acquire that money through the Green Communities program. Next, we have the PVPC District Local Technical Assistance Grant. So we were awarded $10,000, essentially worth of PVPC staff time to assist the department in updating our business and residential tables of use. So there will be more to come on that. However, it may include adding or refining some of the uses that are listed, reformatting, clarifying definitions. The last time these tables of use have been revised was the late 90s, so it's due. Next, we have the Mass Trails Grant. So this was only submitted. We haven't been awarded this grant, but this would be for a feasibility study to assess routes for the Mass Central Rail Trail to come through Palmer. For those of you who don't know, it's a statewide effort from Northampton to Boston to have one rail trail connecting through the state. A lot of communities have engaged in this. Palmer is one of the last missing links, so hopefully this will be sort of the first step in getting the ball rolling on that.
How much did you apply for?
For $56,000. Next was the DER culvert replacement grant program, which I've come before the council before regarding. So this is for field data collection and preliminary design for two culverts on Bacon Road and West Ware Road. As you can see in the top pictures, historically Bacon Road has experienced a lot of flooding. Actually, since this picture was taken, there has been a temporary fix implemented in the meantime because of how significant the flooding was here. However, part of this program is to also enhance stream connectivity and the ecological functions of the stream. So this design will be for a culvert that will comply with stream crossing standards, which will remove barriers for wildlife movement and really increase that connectivity in this tributary to the Ware River. Finally, this is the One-Stop Grant Program award that we received for $430,000. So this is for design of new sewer infrastructure on Thorndike Street, extending down Shearer Street. It'll also include siting of a pump station near the Turnpike overpass. The sewer siphon that exists in Thorndike Street was implemented more than 40 years ago as a temporary fix, so has also long surpassed its lifespan and has sort of bottlenecked development in this area because of lack of sewer infrastructure. So we're really hoping that this improvement will be beneficial to the area. Next, we have some zoning updates.
One question.
Oh, yeah.
About the Thorndike Street. Remember we had a pipeline that broke and it was rushing down by the turnpike. I walk in the morning and right by the high school in Thorndike where I cross the street by the church, there's a manhole cover. And I never noticed this. There's water rushing wicked fast through there.
Oh.
Is the main break coming down the sewer?
Talking the one that happened maybe a month ago?
That was a water department.
Yeah, it was about that. But
Yeah, before
under
the
the sewer
turnpike.
cap, I never noticed that water rushing. You know, the corner of the cemetery and the street
Commerce Street.
going in, right there in the middle of Thorndike Street, well, toward that side. You hear water wicked rushing through there. And I've been walking there for years and I never noticed it. Maybe I just didn't notice it, but it's loud.
Is your hearing getting better?
No. I'm getting long in the tooth. Just something to bring up. I keep forgetting to tell you about that. Thanks.
So next we have the floodplain overlay district. So the proposed draft language is in front of you tonight. So just some background on this. We were actually approached by DCR regarding our floodplain overlay district because it hadn't been revised for 21 years, so it was no longer in compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program. So using some model language from 2020, this draft language was put together to bring the ordinance more in compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program. Next, as far as zoning updates, ADUs or accessory dwelling units, that's something that the planning board is beginning to look into. As many of you probably know, last year around August, the Affordable Homes Act was passed in Massachusetts and made ADUs a by right protected use. For those of you who don't know, an ADU is a self-contained housing unit that exists on the same lot as a principal dwelling. So this will essentially protect ADUs up to 900 square feet or half the size of the principal dwelling. There are still things that the municipality will have say over. For example, whether or not the town will like short-term rentals in these or to prohibit the short-term rentals, whether site plan review may be considered to be required for this. It would still have to follow the as-of-right process if there is site plan review. But this did prohibit owner occupancy requirements in these ADUs and prohibited parking requirements for ADUs near transit or bus stops. The goal of this was to enable housing production and enable aging in place and things of that nature. Next, the planning board has just begun to look at battery energy storage systems. So these would be standalone systems, not in conjunction with solar arrays. So the regulations would essentially just be looking at any public safety considerations that we may want to take into consideration when regulating the siting of these systems.
What are these systems for? What?
So I have the definition here because it's a physical container providing secondary containment to one or more battery cells for storing electrical energy derived from solar or sourced energy from the grid, equipped with cooling, ventilation, fire suppression, electric battery.
So for storing solar
Yep.
energy instead of sending it right back out to the
Yep,
grid.
exactly, yep.
Okay.
Will you just be updating the PPV ordinance? Is that your plan?
The, what word, sorry?
The whatever it is, voltaic, yeah,
no.
our ordinance for solar.
Oh, no, this will be a separate section because this will be for the standalone. So
Got
in
it.
our large scale PV
Yep.
ordinance, it does address the accessory battery energy storage systems, but this would just be for citing for standalone systems.
Gotcha. I didn't know if you were going to add an appendix to that or you were going to come up with a whole new document, but it sounds like you're going with a new document.
Yep.
Oh, that's fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, next, these are two zone change requests that the planning board has been a proponent for. That these are both in front of you tonight. On the left-hand side, outlined in red, are two parcels proposed to change from rural residential to neighborhood business on Palmer Street. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see another two parcels that have actually, since this assessor's map, have been reconfigured. However, they haven't been digitized in the GIS. They haven't been assigned new map lot numbers yet. However, some of the lot lines did change, which has created split zoning on that 1154 Park Street parcel. So this would be proposed to change from town residential to highway business.
Right, so hi, my name is Jessica Layden, and I'm in the Conservation Department. And so, talking about the most recently preserved conservation land, that's Barker Street Conservation Area. So at this point, the trails are open, and there's a parking area, there's a kiosk in that was actually put in by a scout troop just last week. So they received this land grant while I think Heidi was there, and so she can probably answer questions if you have any about that. But it preserves an extra 13 acres of land that helps you get to these other properties. So, you know, the town already had properties, but it was hard. How do you use them? How do you get there? They had to cross private property. So they acquired this parcel that's circled, and now actually the commission and other trail volunteers can maintain the properties that are associated with that entire area. We have some upcoming community outreach events planned for April and May. Rather than just doing a single cleanup, we have events on Earth Day. There's an event at the library if anybody's interested in coming. It's in the evening. That's for, it's school vacation week, so you figured maybe there'd be kids there, families. We're going to talk about why wetlands are important and have some activities for children as well. On the 25th, there's an Arbor Day tree planting event, which I know the commissioners have been waiting for, and that's going to be right here at Town Hall. It's going to tie into the pollinator garden that, as you can see on the bottom, at the end of May, we're going to start planting. And then in between, there's a community work day, trail work day at Barker Street to get that going. Right now, it's really hard to maintain it as for one person. So hopefully a lot of people will come out and help clear the trail and see what that area is all about. And then on May 3rd, there's going to be a cleanup town-wide, which I know a lot of people are getting ready for and excited for. So keep checking the town website and Facebook pages for more information. As far as the native plant pollinator garden, so settled on a spot out in front of Town Hall, and that's actually going to go in really soon. And working with the Hamden, Hampshire Conservation District is really exciting. They provide educational signage, so not only will it be a beautiful place for biodiversity, but it's going to become an educational garden with signage and also trainings for the community and for Pathfinder to learn how to, landscaping is really important, but working with the horticulture department to learn how to take care of a pollinator garden is like the next step, that students can be learning and the community can learn as well. And then this was one of the draft concepts that the consultant that we're working with came up with. So it's going to be right out here in between, the parcels. What's the entrance road between the police department and the detention, the detention basin? So it's right on that side. So yeah, it's hard to describe that spot, but right
That
out
car
there.
in this image, just so you guys can map it out, that car that's coming in, pulling down, that's off of Sykes Street.
Where there's a big green lawn and then the detention basin that you can see. Yeah, so
That's
it'll
the
be,
sign.
right,
Yeah,
the
it's got
police
the
sign
police.
is the little white sign on the left. I know. Anyway, it's going to be beautiful, and there's going to be a community planting day at the end of May if anybody's interested in coming out and helping. That'll be fun. Some upcoming conservation projects. I know there's a lot of words on the screen, but First Street is the contract's now complete. Those capstones were secured. I know there was some worry about the capstones not being secure and they were being tossed in the water, so they're now secure. There's still a lot of volunteer work that can be ongoing there, so if anybody's interested in helping to fix the shingles on the gazebo, for example, or the trail, things like that. And then this spring and summer, there's, again, the Earth Day events in April and May. Madura Conservation Area, there's newly acquired land on the bottom. There's a map on the left, and that bottom circle hasn't been added to any of the maps. So, updating maps and signage is important so people know that these are trails they can access and land they can use. And then there's a trail that's actually on private property right now that needs to be rerouted and remapped, so to help appease everybody involved. Barker Farm or Barker Street Conservation Area, the signage is now in, and we'll have an opening event pretty soon. Not sure exactly when, but hopefully this summer. A lot of trail work needs to happen in the meantime. And then working with C4R, which is the Chicopee Four Rivers Association, and collaborating with them on the Blue Trail is something that's going to be happening to get those kayak launches in that I know were already mentioned. And also water sampling, which has happened in the past, so people can be updated on where the clean water is and where they should be swimming or maybe not. And again, to revive the Palmer Trails Club, I think is really important. Right now we have like a couple people who are single-handedly maintaining all the trails in town, and so it would be nice if we had a group of people doing that again. And then looking at our Wetlands Protection Act ordinance is really important. We have some updates that I think could happen, and I think we're due for an update this year. And as well as looking at our fees and seeing where we can update or change and see comparable towns and what they're doing. Oh, yeah, sorry. We weren't necessarily going to talk about this because they're only under review, but there's the Mass Trails Grant, which we submitted in February, and that was to make Madura accessible. Again, all of these are under review. Not sure if they'll actually happen, but stuff we're working on. There was the MVP Action Grant, which I think was talked about. That's a community development planning and through conservation, looking at stormwater. So looking at like where in town are we having flooding, where in town, or is the infrastructure old, and what can be improved, and exactly how to do that, like having a map. And then there's the MVP Action Grant, which was just recently submitted, and that was through PVPC. They reached out, and that's looking at unpaved roads. And it's actually a regional thing. It's not just here in Palmer. And what can be done about that to teach people how to take care of them. And I think that's pretty much it.
I just have a quick question for Heidi. Green Communities Grant for the wastewater treat heat pump, was that on the capital plan? Do we know?
I'm gonna say yes, because the budget I'm proposing for the wastewater treatment plant for user fee is about $40 less than where Tyne Bond had anticipated. So grants, I think between that as well as the Thorndike design for the Thorndike Street for the sewer siphon are both helping offset what we have to pass on to ratepayers.
Which is awesome. That's why I wanted to bring that up, because I didn't know, and the more we chip away at that list, the less of an impact it will be on the tax, or the rate users for the sewer. Right. Perfect.
Any other questions? No. I just have one comment. So Heidi, we, the council, have requested on numerous occasions for the planning board meetings to be televised, and that hasn't happened yet. But I would just say this, you know, a lot of people don't have the opportunity to attend meetings in person, and there's so many things going on in town, and I would ask that you take that back to the full board for reconsideration, because I know myself, a lot of times when you are reviewing different things, I wish I had the ability to, you know, come out to meetings all the time, but that's unrealistic for a lot of people. And so I just think it's time for those meetings to be televised. You guys have a lot of stuff going on. And, you know, I think today's a really good example of a council meeting where a lot of great things were highlighted. And if this meeting was not being televised, most people would not, the only people that would know what was going on would be the people sitting in the room tonight. So I would just ask you to share that with Mike and the rest of the committee.
Even if they're not watching it tonight, they have the ability to be able to go back and look onto something, and it's even beneficial to the departments that are being televised to say, you know, I don't remember that, but look, I'm gonna go look back 5 meetings ago. Oh, I did say that. You know, I mean, it benefits everybody.
I think those sentiments have been echoed by others as well, and, you know, it's the age of technology, so I think, you know, it's easier now than ever for people to be able to go and watch, so I'll certainly pass that along.
And if you could let me know when that will be on the agenda, because I would like the opportunity to attend.
Sure,
Okay?
definitely.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Are you currently using the newly renovated area for your meetings, or are you currently using the town council room? Or the meeting room, main meeting room?
Depending on the night, if this room isn't utilized, we utilize this room. Otherwise, the police department meeting room, only because the renovations have been going on, and now that it's all reconfigured, we're not exactly sure how many people can fit, especially when there are others attending, not just board members around the table, so.
Great.
And Impact is working on getting that area in the community room and the PD able to be televised.
Great. So then that would either room, if you guys chose to choose either space, then at least maybe you could possibly televise or record it for future.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Awesome.
Okay. The next agenda item is Planning Board Zoning Ordinance Floodplain District, Chapter 171-68 revisions, and this is a vote to refer to the Planning Board. Per Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5. Do you have a motion to refer that back to the Planning Board?
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Next is Planning Board Zoning Petition, Park Street, map 55, lot 143, and lot 145, from town residential to highway business. This is also to refer to the planning board per Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5. Do you have a motion to refer back to the planning board?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Next item is Planning Board zoning petition 3090 Palmer Street, map 29, lot 1, and 3098 Palmer Street, map 24, lot 4, from rural residential to neighborhood business. Again, referring to the Planning Board per Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay,
Thank you all.
thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night. The next item on the agenda is the fiscal '26 town manager budget recommendation.
Yep, so everyone should have received a budget book. I will quickly highlight everything. So the FY26 budget recommendation includes both the annual town operating budget and the wastewater treatment plant budget. I'll start with the wastewater treatment plant budget first because that is the easiest one to review. The wastewater treatment plant proposed budget for FY26 is set at $4,670,000 and $402. $670,402, sorry. When we look at that number, then we have to reduce our offsets. So when we take off the fees such as the Munson user fee and septage we receive, the town user fee will need to cover $3,845,000. Based on the billed EDUs with a 90% expected paid rate, this will set the EDU rate for next fiscal year at $760, up from $720 this fiscal year, which represents a 5.6% increase. And as I mentioned before, I do want to note that we are doing everything in our power to apply for grants and receive them, because if we were to follow the tie and bond plan, the budget recommendation would have been $800 for the EDUs. So we're able to keep that down at $760. I know it's a raise. I know it's going to hurt people in their pockets, but it keeps up with really our capital investment we need, and also just the increased fees that we're getting for general chemicals and everything else.
What was that percentage increase?
5.6. It's 5.56 to be exact, but probably sounds better round down. The FY26 recommended operating budget total is $44,351,980, which is an overall increase of 5.1% from FY25. This account is funded by budgets such as tax revenues, which are $25,049,894. Local receipts are expected to come in at $3,742,611. State receipts that net a total of $15,399,475, and indirects that generate $160,000. When you sum total all of those, that should give you your $44,351,980. While this recommended budget is balanced, it does include some reductions from original requested amounts. Notably, the Palmer Public Schools at $91,000 and the Council on Aging at approximately $30,000. This $30,000 from the Council on Aging would represent the closure of the building on Thursdays. These reductions would have been significantly more had the unions through the Insurance Advisory Committee not met and agreed to raise deductibles, or I should say, incorporate deductibles to health insurance plan of $1,000 per individual for the year and $2,000 for a family per year, which again brought in $450,000 of cost avoidance. So if we had not had that and had that meeting and that agreement, unfortunately, we'd be cutting another $450,000 from the budget. Because the union stepped up, we're able to then reduce that health insurance line, which again became available to the overall budget. Again, I greatly appreciate the unions for stepping in and helping out with the cost avoidance measures. The next steps will be for the budget subcommittee to review the town manager's recommendation column and to meet with the individual departments as needed. And again, budget documents are available on the website. We just uploaded them today, and the council has the budget book. So I'll take any questions you have.
Just a really quick one. You just scanned over that really quick. What was that thing about the Council on Aging? They're closing every Thursday?
My recommendation for the cut of $30,000
Yep.
from the Council on Aging, my proposal is that we close on Thursdays.
Are we already open on
We're
5
open-
days a week?
Correct.
So just Thursdays we will close?
Just Thursdays, yep.
And what would we save? Labor? Is that what you're thinking?
Save labor, and you're able to fill programs that would be lost on Thursdays. We should be able to fill them in throughout the rest of the week somewhere.
So where's the real cost savings of $30,000 coming from?
Staff.
Okay. Got it. So I was gonna say, we still have to pay utilities and things like that. Just closing one day a week doesn't really.
It would solely be staff.
Okay. I was gonna say.
So, Budget Subcommittee is going to start meeting tomorrow.
Wednesday.
Or Wednesday, I keep saying that, I'm rushing the week. Wednesday. So as you guys review the budget, if you have any issues or questions, please email me, and we'll bring them up and bring back the answers.
What time you guys meet?
We're meeting at 6.
I'm assuming it's here.
Yes. Okay, next item on the agenda is a discussion of a special committee review of ordinances of the town per town charter, section 9.5. Brad?
Yep, so it's actually section 9.5A. We probably should have noted that on the agenda, but it's the periodic review of the charter and ordinances. So this is specific verbiage from the charter. Not later than the first day of July, at 5 years intervals in each year ending in a 5 or 0, the town manager and town council shall provide for a review to be made of the ordinances of the town for the purpose of preparing a proposed revision and/or recodification of the same without substantive change. This special committee is comprised of 9 members. It is 2 council members, the town manager, and 6 voting members of the town. And again, what we would do is we'd put a post out. We'll get information out of where you can apply, whether you can always mail me an application or a letter of interest. And also too, we'll put an email address. I'll work with Marlene on that, and we'll get something out to the public. But the goal would be to appoint that committee. The council would have to appoint. It says specifically before June 15th, but then it also reads that if there's a meeting after, you can have that after. So I think our meeting falls a couple days after that date, for keeping with the second Monday of each month. So that'll be the goal, is on that June meeting, we will appoint all of these positions.
It'll be June 9th, because it's the second Monday. Yep. 5.
Yes. Okay, so it will be June 9th, so we'll beat the date.
Yep.
All right.
My thought was, we have an ordinance subcommittee. I don't remember, I think Chris, Phil, and maybe Carl, I can't remember. But I think it makes sense for 2, I can't have 3, but 2 of you decide, whoever's on that committee, since it's an ordinance committee, I think it makes sense for those people to be on the committee. So you guys can fight it out amongst yourselves. I'll have to look who's actually on it if you don't remember. But,
Yeah, they hasn't met in 2 years.
well, feel free to schedule a meeting. Okay, anything else on that? All right, subcommittee reports.
Any other new business?
Is there any other?
Oh, no, that's fine. Keep going. Sorry, my bad.
Subcommittee reports. I've now twice incorrectly said that the budget subcommittee will be meeting on Wednesday. Any other subcommittees? Town managers report?
All right, so just a reminder for anyone who's interested in elected positions, the last day to obtain nomination papers is April 17th. So you got 3 days to get that in, and then papers need to be filed by April 22nd. So if anyone is interested in elected positions, that is your date. And the last day to withdraw nomination papers is May 8th. In addition to those elected positions, on the bottom of the agenda, you'll see all the seats we have vacant for various committees throughout town. So the same process as last year. If anyone is interested, whether you are sitting and you want to continue on, or you're a new potential candidate, please email me or mail me your letter of interest of really what your goals are for the position.
Do you want to read the ones that are vacant so people can know?
Sure. There's 1 seat on the Zoning Board of Appeals. There is 1 seat at the Board of Registrars. There's 1 seat on the Conservation Commission. The Council on Aging has 3 seats. The Historical Commission has 1 seat. The Cultural Council has 1 seat. The Palmer Housing Authority has 3 seats. Palmer Redevelopment has 2 seats, and the Palmer Recreation Committee has 1 seat. And again, if there's anything vacant after we close these out, they're on an ongoing basis after 7/1.
Originally, I saw an ad that the planning board listed on there.
So I wouldn't put, because the ones that are on the agenda are all appointments from, I think, recommendations from the town manager. I kept them separate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is there a vacancy on the planning board?
No, I think he's saying,
Or just
I
the,
saw it in the newspaper that there were the openings, and one of them was planning board.
Yeah, and it could be, but again, it's elected.
for
Yeah,
the
but that's
elected.
that's for the election.
Oh, okay.
These are appointed, right?
We got the fuel assistance. And the only thing I want to note is that I believe the council receiving a request to accept a bell donation from the Divine Mercy Parish at our next meeting. They're looking to donate a bell in celebration of the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And I know the Cultural Council is working, I think, with the library board to potentially look at that for a location to put it. So more to come on that one, but just want to put that on your radar.
So we're not gonna talk about it tonight, other than that?
For that to Barbara, it wasn't on the,
It's
it
not
wasn't
on the-
as an agenda
Well,
item.
if the historical commission's going to the library, I think it makes more sense to do it at our next meeting, after they have that meeting. Is that
It'll be
okay?
agenda item.
Yeah, as an
Okay.
agenda item, yeah.
All right.
You good?
I hope so. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Miscellaneous correspondence, anyone?
the building in Three Rivers there, it belongs, the town refurbed it, it's apartments upstairs, you have, I think it actually under the Palmer Housing Authority, is it not?
This is correspondence,
The-
not a counselor's roundtable.
Is this a letter you received from somebody?
Just, it doesn't have to be a letter, does it?
This is,
Well, I think it depends on where it falls on the agenda.
No, so did someone reach out to you about it, or you have a question? Okay, sorry,
Yeah.
okay,
It-
continue.
Been asked about it many
Oh.
times, and I actually tried calling them about why that place hasn't been rented since we refurbed it.
so it's
We put all this, the town spent money to have that place.
Three
or
Rivers
help-
Smock Housing.
The smock.
House?
Oh, okay, Smock.
We didn't spend any
Yeah, we
money, that
didn't.
was a grant
Yep.
that they
Okay,
had.
well,
Okay, but continue, sorry.
but why the
Why
place
is it-
hasn't been rented out, since it's all the work, whether it's Smock Housing, wherever they got their grant money, it all comes tax dollars. But from what I've heard, is they're very difficult to get a hold of. They're asking ridiculous money to rent that space. You would think that you would, at least if you are obtaining something from that space, having a business in that space is better than nothing for the last, 5 years now? That place has been empty.
Last I
It looks
heard-
real beautiful.
Last I heard, it was only $1,000 a month they were asking for rent.
I
And
don't
I know
know.
the manager of the property.
They never answer their phones, they never return your calls.
I'll hook you up with
Well,
somebody.
yeah, Matt's
I
the
got
chamber
connections. You know.
president, so.
How about, that's fine, but maybe you could just look into it also, and just see what the status is.
So just so
So
I
it to
know,
go
it was sta-
unrented for that
Small
We
long
got one time, like,
is
we got state money, we
ridiculous.
got a grant.
No, it had nothing to do with it, we didn't get any money.
Yeah, we didn't do
It was
anything with it.
It was through Smock.
Yeah.
Well, I think we helped secure grants or something, I don't know, I just,
Yeah.
or
It wasn't- there was
approving of
no
it,
town
whatever,
money.
I
There was
remember
no-
sitting
Yeah, but there
here.
was no town money that was put
Right,
into the
right.
building.
Yeah. I don't know the
bottom line
exact
is it's
reason.
tax dollars, money's gone to waste.
Well, somebody's still paying taxes on the property, and the upstairs has been rented out since day one, so they're paying taxes for it, just nobody's utilizing the
Let him
business.
find out, and if
space,
you have
so-
a connection to
Yeah, I
Phil,
got a
that's great,
connection
but, okay, so we'll follow up on that. Anything else, Phil?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'd say sorry, but I'm not.
The council received a letter from 3 high school students sharing their questions and concerns about the budget process and where our taxpayer dollars are going. And it was a very well written letter. And we invited them to our finance meeting on Wednesday to have a discussion about municipal finance and budget process. I think this is a really great opportunity to have a conversation with some students about the process and what we're doing on our end, and where all of the money goes and how we are trying to support the school as well. So I hope that this is informative and answers their questions. But I'm very appreciative that they show an interest in the process and reached out to us with, again, a long and very well written letter that everybody on the council received.
Anybody else for correspondence? Counselors Roundtable.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I've been receiving complaints about large commercial vehicles parked in residential neighborhoods. Like, we're talking semi-trailers and semi-trucks parked in residential neighborhoods. And I would like to review the ordinance, because I've already gotten information back from the chief of police and from Bill Fenner, who's our zoning enforcement. And there's a loophole currently in the system because we don't currently have anything preventing it. So I would like to review either the ordinance or sit down and figure out what we can do to prevent that, because there are neighborhoods where we literally have just trailers sitting in the road. There's not even a truck sitting there. And I don't want to go as far as say no commercial vehicles at all, because I know obviously people have jobs and they have commercial vehicles, but we're talking semi trucks and dump trucks and things like that should technically not be parked in a residential neighborhood.
Why is that now?
Well, for one, the issue up in the area that was number one complaint that's been there for a couple of years now is that the trailer sits there all winter long and the plows go right around it because the town is not paying the money to tow it. So it just sits there.
So
and
it's a trailer just abandoned on the road, you're saying?
I do not think it's parked in front of a residence, so I would assume it's somebody's. It's not off like to the side. It's literally
It's
right
not in their, on their property, you're saying?
No, if it all right, here's the deal. I learned that if it's on their property, then it's a zoning issue. But because it's parked in a public way, that's where the loophole comes in.
Depending on the width of the street, it just,
No, yeah, yeah.
there's a lot of variables that
It
just
shouldn't be
needs.
left on a street.
Well, it sounds like the ordinance subcommittee.
Looks like you guys have some work.
So I think you need to figure, I mean, I can look when I get home who's on that, but I'll let you, I know it's 1 and 4. I'll let you
I
know.
don't even know.
No, I'm pretty sure I'm there.
I have the
I'm
list.
just
I'll
bringing
grab
it
it.
up because I've
Yeah.
received multiple complaints. So
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
and it's not just the one neighborhood in Three Rivers. I guess it's
No,
happening in other
there's-
neighborhoods.
You
So.
you had started looking into that.
Right.
Yeah, so, okay. So I know Brad did some research, so, I mean, we'll figure it out. Anything
No,
else?
but I think it's spot on. There's a loophole in the ordinance that someone could actually just move it off of their lot and put it on the street, and they're in compliance.
Right.
It just needs to be
Right,
rewritten.
it's a zoning issue if it's in their driveway. If it's not in the driveway, then it becomes
Exactly.
a loophole.
Phil, Matt, and Chris on the ordinance review.
Phil, Matt, and Chris.
Perfect.
Okay, there you go.
Awesome.
Chris?
Well, I got a conflict of interest.
Oh. I thought you were meant Carl.
Okay.
That's all
Well,
I have.
I know too, several years ago, when we put the ordinance committee together, we asked all the departments, or the ordinance committee to meet with all the departments and find out what ordinances needed to be updated in order so that they could do their job more efficiently. And so maybe it's time, that was, probably close to 20 years ago. I don't know. But maybe it's time that the ordinance subcommittee also does that, meets with the different departments that have ordinances. I mean, it's gonna be part of that review, but I mean, you guys could do it as part of a review of, what kind of keying in on which ones actually have some issues, if you know what I mean. Okay?
We have some that make zero sense. The whole thing needs to be reviewed across the board.
Okay.
Starting with the trucks.
Did anybody else have anything for roundtable?
I can add with the truck details too. There's a guy named Phil that goes over Breckenridge. And I don't know what the weight level there is on that bridge over
Breckenridge
the
is fine,
turnpike.
Okay.
especially if I'm just bobtailing.
We're gonna okay, so we're gonna adjourn from formal session. We're gonna go into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Number 3, which is to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. This is for union negotiations for Palmer Police, NEPBA Local 071, Palmer Police Dispatch, UFCW Local 1459, and the DPW and Administrative Unit, UPSEU Local 424M. So I so declare. Do I have a motion to go into executive session? And we will adjourn from executive session. We will not be going back to open session.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Jess, second by Matt. Roll call vote. Matt?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
Bill?
No.
Chris? Jess? And I vote yes. Okay, good night.
Somebody gotta-
Wait,